I am the designer behind a brand that I started, first started conceiving in 2019 called Ilium Wing. Um, the reason that I chose that name is because Ilium Wing is the name in anatomy for the hip bone. And so my primary medium is I make waist beads and waist jewelry. I'm actually going to start expanding out to more traditional fine jewelry as well. My work is grounded in waist jewelry, which is something that's very close to me culturally. In women of African descent all over the world, a lot of us wear waist beads for decoration, over the clothes, under the clothes. A lot of my work is centered on femininity and ancestry. Um, and so that's all grounded in waist beads, and so all of that is what's grown out of my brand, and that really drives my work as well. And I've been a jeweler, like I said, since 2019, and was a bench jeweler and was responsible for all of the casting, goldsmithing, sprue trees, and that whole thing. It rocks my world. So yeah, I studied and did that for a while as I was formulating and imagining my brand, and led into launching and where I am today. She is the former chief marketing officer of Netflix. Her name is Bazoma St. John. And I made a gift for her. This was in 2021. I made a gift, a commission gift for her, and I go through the process, and there's interview questions, and I do a lot of research and all these things to be able to create a piece. And I got it appraised and all of these things. So I sent it to her, and by surprise, on Mother's Day of 2021, she did this whole spread, and she like put on an outfit, and she was in her yard, and she wore the piece, and then she like showed off the packaging and the appraisal, and I'm watching it in my parents' living room with my sister, and I'm screaming and running around the house like, oh my God. Definitely didn't know that she was going to do that. I had made a video for her. She spliced it and put some of the video, so now I'm embarrassed because the world can hear my voice. So anyways, that did wonders for my confidence of like, I can really do this, and it really makes an impact with people that inspire so many people. So that was a big turning point for me as a jewelry designer. So this is one of the pieces. I made this in 2021 as a prototype. But this is freshwater pearls and peridots. And I had never made a piece with pearls. So I was like, oh, well, let me try that. And so I love this one. Let me see if I can get like a better display. And then it's designed so that the peridots will just sit at the back instead of like a necklace in the front. It'll, adorn your back, right above your, what I'm saying, your lovely lady lumps. So this is one of my favorite. And then this is a early prototype that I made in 2020. And then this is from my first gemstone dealer. But these are green onyx and then morganite, and then some gold beads as well. The reason that this one is really significant is because this is when I first started using bone in my pieces. So bone is one of my primary mediums for my pieces, and the reason is I started to study ancestral jewelry a lot. Ancestry is a big part of what I do, and realized in looking at the history of jewelry, before humans were metalsmiths, we were hunter-gatherers, and whatever we hunted, that animal was sacred, and every piece of that animal was used and held sacred. So the skin, we've got to make clothes, we've got to make roofs, we've got to make, and the bone either became tools or jewelry. So even when we were nomadic, we considered adorning ourselves. So I use bone to honor that. And then I also met he's an African traditional king. And he saw when I was taking pictures early in my prototype days, and he called a woman's hips the portal between heaven and earth. I was like, that is poetic and saucy. That's what a king is supposed to say. And so bone, even in that context, and how my pieces adorn the bone and the hips. So anyways, this was a very special piece for me early because it's the first time that I started to work with and pull in that energy of using bone in my pieces. Last year I met a gentleman. What can I say? He's kind of awesome. But he wanted to go to India. His father had passed away, and it was his. He always said that one day when his father passed away, he wanted to take his ashes to the Ganges. And he doesn't practice yoga or anything. He's from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Like he just, but that's something that he was drawn to. So he asked me to go with him. I'd studied yoga for a while and Hinduism, and so we used to talk about it, and he was like, there's no other person I would rather go with. And so that was part of the trip, and in planning I was like, well, my supplier actually lives in Jaipur, would love to go and meet him. I guess I learned this last year, even in 21, that Jaipur, Rajasthan specifically, is the colored gemstone capital of the world. So much of the rough globally goes there to be cut. And so to go and just to be in this place was amazing. So this was in New Delhi. This was early in the trip. This is the first temple that we'd visited. Oh, I remember this. So this is a Lakshmi temple. We were not allowed to take cameras, but I remember in the temple they had different passages from the Bhagavad Gita sketched into the walls. And one of the beautiful passages that I saw, it talked about how like God orders everything like beads on a string. And I was like, yo, that's me. Oh my God. And I just stood there in this temple and just wept and was overwhelmed, and it was just a whole thing. So that was the Lakshmi temple. That was like how we started the trip. So this is when we finally made it to Jaipur, and I went to see my supplier. He has a factory outside of the city, but he had some gentlemen that were in the shop that were working with him, and I was able to see the process of how they make the beads. And this can be beads anywhere from 2 millimeter faceted rondelles to something 6 millimeters, 18 millimeters, or whatever. And so what they do is they take the rough and then cut it down into the rough shape or what it might be. And this man just has a spinning saw, and it's just unguarded, and he's just got to know, like, it was amazing. So it's just the precision. And so it's just this row of cutter, and then there's someone who smooths it out and rounds it, and then you have another person that facets, and then another person at the end who puts the hole in every single bead with these tools. So he makes these tools, and then he puts them in a rig, and then it vibrates, and he takes each stone and zit, zit, zit by hand. It could be a 2 millimeter piece of stone that's been cut down from a big chunk of rough. And I'm like, I don't know how this is possible. And then even from that supplier, once all of this is done, before the order ships to me, they do quality control. So if the size isn't just right, if the hole is just slightly off, all of that, they don't even include that in the batch. And it just was baffling. So this was just a small team that was there in the office, but way out in another part of that state, there's hundreds of these trained artisans. And actually that the artisan, that skill started in the 1600s to service the royal family, and those artisans trained their sons who trained their sons, and so that's how Rajasthan became the gemstone cutting capital of the world. So that was at my suppliers, and there were so many shapes I had not seen, because they, chunky heart briolettes and dolphins. I don't know what this is. So I was like, show me all the shapes. Let me just see. And then they were bringing out gemstones that I had never seen. So I'm just looking at them, holding them, looking at them through the light, trying to see the refraction. It was fascinating, and they just pulled everything out. They knew I was there to visit. I wasn't buying anything that day, but I was like, just show me what you're doing. Got to meet the owner, got to meet his daughter. This is actually earlier in the trip. We were in New Delhi on a tour, and apparently in this place too, there was like a small street off of the chaos of the market where all of the artisans had been living for hundreds of years to service one of the royal families there. So anyways, these are descending jewelers that support, anyways, it's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And so got to be in a shop, and he said some things and then I said some things. So he knew that I was a real jeweler, and I knew he was a real jeweler, and then he just brings out like all the goods, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm squealing over these envelopes of sapphires and emeralds, and I'm just like, I just wanted to eat them. I just wanted to put them all in my mouth. It was insane.
How would you even know like pricing or anything like that? How would you know if you're getting a good deal, or
Yeah.
this guy's legitimate or not?
So that was actually really hard because I knew that I didn't. So I wasn't comfortable buying anything, and I was frustrated because I didn't know enough. And it was really the pricing. And I have a really good eye for gemstones, and I'm enrolled now in GIA courses actually for Colored Gemstones 1 and 2, and then Diamond Essentials, just to help add some grounding to what I do know. But I didn't know enough. We even went to a store with gold jewelry, and it was all stamped 22 karat gold, beautiful, weighted, and my boyfriend was trying to calculate the price. He was like, this can't be right, because look up the price of gold. So it did not match, and maybe it was correct, but not understanding culturally, or couldn't figure it out. Just didn't trust myself and didn't want to buy something that might have been incorrect. Also, what I noticed in that first store, and then another that was in Jaipur in Rajasthan, a lot of the jewelry looked familiar, a lot of the rings. And I was like, why do these, I'm familiar with these designs. And the rings that are here on the table. I love the loose gemstones because that's my happy place. But when I was looking at the rings, I said, so many of these styles look familiar. And when we were in Jaipur, I was like, so are you making these here? Are you casting them? This is amazing. Where do you? He says, oh, they come from somewhere nearby. And I realized these are all coming from a factory somewhere, facility somewhere. These all look like rings that I have seen sold in the U.S. Oh, that's what's happening. They have to have mass manufacturing because this is gemstone capital of the world. Of course, the labor's going to be cheaper. Of course, they're shipping all of this home. So I was like, oh, so I was so happy that I knew about the industry, that I was able to see some of those things. Not even just prices, but to understand design, timeline on design. Having this understanding gave me more appreciation, but I also was not able to be caught off guard. It actually intimidated one jewelry shop owner. kept looking for jewelry that I liked. Saw a lot of things that were what I realized were manufactured and sent to America, but found an independent jeweler who happened to be in Jaipur. She was the princess of the queen of the current royal family, and they're the Sun dynasty. They're the Singh family, Singh, and have been in power since the 1600s. You know, just nothing to sniff at. Just, you know, they just got on the block, right? So she had a jewelry store at the small hotel, I guess more like a cottage, whatever that where we stayed. And really unique designs. I was looking for something unique, and I found these beautiful earrings. I almost wore them today. And it almost looks like jade, but it's just this deep green onyx, and they're, you know, they're plated. So I was on the website and in the store, and I was asking, oh, these, you know, what are these? This stone, that was stone, this, blah, blah. Are these diamonds? She says, those are American diamonds. It's like, I'm American, and I'm a jewelry designer. We don't use American diamonds in America. What are American diamonds? She says, oh, those are Cuba zirconia. Oh my God. I was like, we did this to ourselves. We did this. So I thought that was so disappointing and spectacularly clever marketing. Yes. And so I'm here to let everyone know that we have done this to ourselves. We were on the Ganges on New Year's morning, and every New Year's Day, hundreds of thousands of people go to the Ganges to bathe and pray. And so we were there, and because a lot of work that I do is centered on, of course, the feminine and feminine form, but I also like to play with this balance between spirituality and adornment and how they oftentimes will come together. And so just seeing these women wearing their jewelry, wearing these bright colors just so they can go dunk themselves in this holy ritual on New Year's Day, and watching them play and giggle and dress, and I just was all over it. I was enamored. So I don't know if I was spying. I probably was quite obvious. This is a holy man who, he touched me on the head, and honestly, I don't think I've been the same since in the best ways. But he's been sitting by the Ganges for years. He doesn't know how long. He sits there because he says Shiva wants him there. And what I love about this picture is that even he is still adorned. Of all things that he's refused, he still has fresh garlands around him and in his hair. And it was one of the best representations for me of that balance between spirituality and adornment. And India, like they have flower markets, huge flower markets, especially in the morning, because all of the temples and all of the people are coming so that they can buy the flowers as a part of their rituals throughout the day. And so that's amazing to me. So that's all of this color and bursting with life. It's all the same thing, that beauty and spirituality in India, and for my work as well, they go hand in hand. It's made me, I love colored gemstones. I just do. I appreciate and respect diamonds, but I love colored gemstones. So I want to use more color. I want to play with, you know, different patterns and uses of color. And then just immediately on returning, I mean, the very next day, still jet lagged, wanted to just start making. I've started to make a chakra inspired collection. And that might seem basic because India and the chakras, but having this elevated understanding now of literally how spirituality and adornment are the same in India. So it's really just increased that relationship with my work. This picture is of my boyfriend frustrating me because he was trying to make me smile in a picture, and he likes to hop around, I've discovered. But I love in these like ancient etchings, you see the feminine form, and she is, designed just bespeckled and going for it. And I'm like, yep, it's my type of woman. And so was wearing one of my pieces that day to kind of just, be in the same energy. I see these ancient figures and I see a lot of myself. So she's banging the drum and I'm gonna laugh and snort, and we're gonna be we're gonna be adorned while we do it. The first thing that comes to mind is that learning the jewelry business is slow. There's so much from the trade of it to how telling my friends who are already entrepreneurs, like even trying to help them understand how things are priced, is almost out of their range of understanding. Like, what wait, how do you gold price? So that's amazing. Like, there's just so much to learn, and it's slow. It is hard for me to understand or recall that I've been doing this since 2019, since I first started looking at designers and their businesses and their websites and prototyping. And it took me, a year and a half just to understand what kind of string I was going to use. So there's constantly something to learn, and what does it is, what allows it is this curiosity, like this excited curiosity. You don't get into this business if you're just like, oh, gold makes you money. That would be really cute. No, it's definitely, you have to have this desire for curiosity, for learning that never ends. You have to have a very special relationship with beauty as well, because it's not just in product, but it's understanding the process and the whys and making so many decisions along the way to get to a final product. That's the thing. If you're trying to get into it, know that there's so much to learn. You have to be very curious, a very curious person to want to participate in any part of the jewelry industry.
Tell us about your Instagram, because I'm really impressed with your social media. Tell me, that must take so much time.
Thank you. So Instagram is native for me just by virtue of, timing and my generation, and I know for a lot of people it's not. But it's evolving for me. It's how do I want to tell a story, and how can I do it with less words? And so even for this, I was sitting at my workstation and I was lining up beads, and I just was like, this is beautiful. Look how the sun is hitting my work. And that was the story. That was it. That was the purpose, is just to be able to show the color and the sun. And even though in the Instagram generation, for me it has felt overwhelming at times, and I have to consistently remember, what is it that's unique that I just want to show? Apps and extra buttons, that's something that can go into outer space, but that's where it starts with me. It's just, what is this moment, this 5-second moment, this 10-second moment? And so that's what I do. And then I also like to laugh at myself and not take myself too seriously. And so I will put my face on my Instagram sometimes. But yeah, that's what I like to show. It's just moments. And it also, that serves as my archive. personally, because I don't have a picture book. My parents do. Hopefully, I'll be able to give my iPhone password to my grandchildren. Um, but it's my archive of my moments too. So that's another reason I share, so that I'll be able to go back and look again. MAGG is amazing. To come here to the workshop, it's like, where can I just go hang out with Geppetto for a moment? And because everything is here, being here makes so much possible and capable. Otherwise, like, there's so much I would not be able to do. I was coming, it was some weeks ago, and I just wanted to make a new nose ring. And I didn't want to buy one online, so I bought some gold from Rio. Just, oh my God, I know how to buy gold from Rio. I just was thankful to be able to come here just to do something that was so simple, but I also realized took so much work. And there were people here to help me to do this very simple thing that took so much work. And there's nowhere else I could have gone to do this thing. So for something so simple and mundane to something complicated, even I was doing a project that was inspired by the Black Panther movie that came out in November, Black Panther 2. And I was making my very first pair of earrings. Oh my God. And I got to pull out like my saw and my saw blades again. And I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. But I still needed to come here because I couldn't find my flex shaft. And I knew I was going to need to anneal. And I couldn't do those things. So I had to be here so that I could execute on that project. And I'm just so glad that I am able to come. To have the skills is one thing, but to have somewhere to come and do it is what makes it possible. And so yeah, coming here is essential to my work. Truly it is. That's a very big question, because there's so many industries that ask the exact same thing. And I always say there's two important things. There's recruitment and retention. Outreach is one thing, but then it's the incentive to stay that so many, industries have never had to think of. For me, I started making jewelry as a kid, just in my room playing with beads, and you could loop it around and make these little flowers. And I would make that on a bracelet rather than play with Sega Genesis. And that was my fun. But never in my mind was there an introduction that making jewelry was a profession. It just was a hobby. So there's not an awareness of things that are possible. And that happens at for any culture, for any ethnicity, for any race, for any socioeconomic background. If you don't know it exists, then there's no impetus. So I think that when people are given an opportunity for a new curiosity, then you automatically create a way for people to come in. And kids keep wanting to learn stuff. Even college students, something to do. So everyone is interested in some time and space to create. There's so many skills that are not developed because we just have phones, but I will not get into that. But one thing that I do find interesting is that when you're on the nose with a thing, because there's so many things that people that distract them, you won't have a teenager that's looking at where can I find jewelry classes. But like you're getting ready to do with something that's so culturally divergent but seated, like to be able to do this class with grills, that is like, who would even think of that? And that's perfect for a subset of a culture.
It is.
That's completely different. So there are things that are like that. I remember I was working in advertising, and there's a woman here who works in Atlanta, and she is a big voice for the Latinx community, and even just her heritage with Latina women, Latinas in big gold earrings, and what that means for her and her mother and her grandmother. Like, that's still history around adornment. So I think that when jewelry becomes personal, it touches into something, because it is personal to everybody. So I think that moments like that and paying attention to that awareness, that makes things really, really special, and now it catches somebody's attention.